let's dive into a real tech mystery. We're looking at an iPhone 12 Pro, and it has a problem that is basically every smartphone owner's worst nightmare. And to figure it out, we've got to go deep inside the most complex part of the phone, the motherboard.
Seriously, think about it for a second. We rely on these things for pretty much everything. So what is that one thing, that single point of failure that just sends a shiver down your spine?
Yep, that's the one. No screen, no vibration, zero signs of life. It's a brick. And when that happens, the big question isn't just why. It's, can it even be fixed?
So today, we're basically putting on our detective hats. This isn't just some broken phone. You can think of it like a crime scene. Our victim is an iPhone 12 Pro, and the cause of death is a total power failure. Our job is to find the culprit.
Now, this isn't as simple as a dead battery. That would be too easy. The very first clue comes when a technician hooks the phone up to a power supply. They see this tiny, weird little jump in the electrical current, and that tells them the problem is somewhere much, much deeper inside the phone.
So, with a clue that specific, where do you even begin? Well, just like in a real investigation, technicians follow a very logical process. They have a list of usual suspects they check first to start narrowing things down. And this is that first step in action. The motherboard gets connected to a special power supply, the tech tells the phone to turn on, and then they watch that meter like a hawk. The way that little needle behaves tells a huge story about what's going wrong on the inside. So what story is it telling us? That little amperage spike is like a giant flashing sign. It points to something called a power rail failure. And you can think of a power rail like the phone's internal electrical highway. Right now, there's a crash or a massive traffic jam, and power just can't get where it needs to go. You know, every good mystery needs a red herring, right? The suspect that seems super guilty at first, but turns out to be totally innocent. Well, in the world of iPhone repair, there's a very common culprit for this exact kind of problem. And here it is, suspect number one, the NAND chip. This is the phone's main storage. It's where all your photos, apps, and data actually live. A short circuit on its power supply is a super frequent cause of a dead iPhone, so it is always the first place you check. So the technician does their due diligence, carefully testing each of the power lines that feed that NAND chip, looking for any sign of a problem. And here is the plot twist in our little story. Our prime suspect has a rock-solid alibi. The NAND chip and its power supply are completely fine. The investigation just got a lot more complicated.
So this means we're kind of back to square one. If the most common culprit is innocent, the technician has no choice but to dig deeper. And that means it's time to do something much, much riskier. To find the real culprit, the tech has to perform a kind of microsurgery on the most critical component in the entire phone, its logic board. See, modern iPhone motherboards are incredible pieces of engineering. They're actually two separate circuit boards that are soldered together back to back, just like a sandwich. To inspect the components on the inside, you have to carefully separate them. It's a really delicate, high-stakes procedure. And to do this safely, you need a very precise temperature. The board is placed on a heating platform and brought up to exactly 230 degrees Celsius. That's the magic number, hot enough to melt the solder holding the two halves together without damaging the hundreds of tiny components all around it. And this is the moment of truth. The board is separated, the inner layers are exposed for the first time. And after all that searching, the problem isn't just found, it's staring right back at the technician. You can almost feel the relief, can't you? No more searching, no more testing. The cause of the total power failure was, in the technician's own words, immediately obvious. And there it is. A single, tiny component called the boost coil had simply fallen off the motherboard. A component smaller than a grain of rice had completely killed this $1,000 phone. Okay, so what is a boost coil? And why does it matter so much? Well, think of it as a crucial part of the phone's power management system. If the voltage from the battery dips, the boost circuit kicks in to raise it back up to a stable level. Without that coil, the whole system just can't function. It's game over. And here's what makes this so important. This wasn't just some random fluke. Experienced technicians know this specific boost coil is a weak point on the iPhone 12 Pro and the Pro Max. It's a known and totally fixable design flaw. So the culprit is found, the mystery is solved. Now for the satisfying part, the fix, and the successful rescue of the owner's precious data. And this just illustrates the difference perfectly.
Before, you see that small, abnormal spike that told us something was really wrong. And after, you see a healthy, normal amperage reading as the phone boots up. That is the beautiful sight of a successful repair. The technician sourced a replacement boost coil from a donor board, carefully soldered it into place, and the phone came right back to life. And really, most importantly, the customer's photos and data were saved, which is often the main reason people seek out these kinds of repairs to begin with. And this whole repair brings up a fascinating final question. A phone that most people and most manufacturers would consider e-waste was brought back to life because one person knew how to diagnose and replace one tiny loose part. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much of what we throw away is actually just one small fixable problem away from being perfectly useful again?